serves me. And that is, as we talk about my cancer, what was so clear. I'll just digress by saying one of the healers that I worked with, and I had 6 of them that met with me every day, each one every day. And it was just so clear, as one said to me, your cancer is your beloved. And I went, it is.
Wow. Yeah.
And yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So
Wow.
as
6 healers.
if we can jump into that, I'd like to go into, because I know we're going to, lose time here,
Sure, sure, sure. Why
to
not?
to to go into that part of my life which has offered so much. And I appreciate for many, including many in my family, by being diagnosed with cancer, it's a death knell. I mean, that's what is interpreted
Mm.
by many. For me, it was something that I knew, yes, would be challenging, but serve me. And again, at a multifaceted way, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I knew it
Wow.
was to offer gifts. And I knew healing required all of those aspects of me.
Mm.
So one of the insights I will pass on to all of you, and I did share this with Jeannie, is to realize that we are multifaceted. And I believe by embracing all aspects of me, I was able to go through the pain and go through the fears and go through the sabotaging behaviors when I
Mm.
knew all of what I was doing was elevating all those aspects of me. Um, and so that would be my first takeaway. As
Wow. So for those of us who may not be aware of what type of cancer you had, just to let everybody know, she had vulvar cancer, which is that very unusual or is that more usual than we think?
No, it's unusual, very difficult to treat.
Mm.
So, and you'll say, well, what do you mean? And I'll just say, if you would like to imagine what that feels like, given I had um, radiation Monday through
Yes.
Friday,
Wow.
imagine your genitals being burnt 5 days a week,
Yes.
right?
Wow. That's, yeah, very
It's
tough.
not comfy.
Very tough.
And chemo, I'm sure many of you would know that that's challenging as well. So, and I'm just almost able to sit. I hadn't sat for over 6 months.
Oh my
I was
gosh.
standing all
Wow.
the time. So,
That's,
but that's not my takeaway. I'd like to go through the takeaways first, just to give people
yes,
both gifts, if that's okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. So one is, I say, is to recognize all the instead of looking at the silver bullet and minimizing, I would like to say, no matter what shows up in our life, even cancer, it serves us.
Mm.
And the more multifaceted we approach it, as I say, many aspects of it enabled me to certainly address what appeared to be just the physical. I'd like to also say, by asking my colleagues and friends to join me on the journey and support me,
Mm.
I'll just say, without them, it would have been far more difficult. And I'll say, my belief is we were never meant to journey alone. We
Mm.
were always meant to do this together. And together we can do far more. And
Yes.
together we can certainly do it with much more grace and faith and trust and strength.
Mm.
I would also like to say, as I've already expressed, this is a rare cancer. And I'd like to say the insight that came because I sensed something a year before it was diagnosed and I
Mm.
ignored it. Both the allopathic and alternative world missed it. And I'd like to suggest to all of us, trust your body,
Mm.
trust yourself. I appreciate we have professionals in our lives that have a different point of view.
Yes.
However, I would strongly recommend that you reconsider and pursue what your gut might be telling you.
Mm.
Yes. And I'd like to then end. Those are the 4, right?
Okay.
So not to ignore your body, heal all aspects, don't do it alone, and trust that no matter what shows up, and this is not a message just for cancer. So, we miss the train. From that to it's raining on a favorite day that we've
Yeah.
planned, to someone doesn't show up for dinner that you had hoped, or spent all day cooking for, whatever it may be. I would offer you to not limit life by your assumptions and expectations, but rather as it shows up. As my wonderful healer friend said, see my tumor as a beloved.
Mm.
To say, if this is showing up, to trust that it serves you at some level, and be willing to not know why or what it's all about,
Mm.
and be in that place of just saying, I'm open, and this is what I did a lot of.
Mm.
I may not understand this. I may not understand this level of pain. I may
Yeah.
not understand this level of debilitation.
Yes.
However, I trust that it serves me. And we're going into, I want to say that, well, that's a question about gratitude. Well,
Mm.
I'll go, I want to speak about that in a little bit, but I'll just end those 4 insights there.
Well, those 4 insights are very, very powerful in of themselves, even if you didn't have any other insights. So, but
I've got more,
those,
but yes, we have a limited
yes,
amount of time.
yes. So, just curious. I'm sure everyone's very curious, Michelle. So, is your cancer in complete remission now, or?
Yep.
Wow!
I did it in 5
Congratulations!
weeks.
Yay!
So I just,
Five,
here's another,
five.
please. So normally you take, I don't know what anyone's normal is, but anyway, in this, from NYU, which is where I am,
Yeah.
you take an MRI, or you take some test that tells you what you have or what you don't have.
Yeah.
And normally you go through a protocol, and then you look at it later. And I asked them, I would really appreciate if you can just reassess me in 5 weeks, just see how I
Wow.
am, and we'll continue along.
Yeah.
And much to their shock, after just 5 weeks, the tumor was totally gone.
Wow.
And that speaks to, yes, and I will not change my tune here. The
Hmm.
chemo and radiation certainly contributed. The
Okay.
healers, the energy healers, absolutely
Yes.
contributed. The
Yes.
diet I created for myself absolutely contributed. So again,
Fantastic.
multifaceted, very holistic approach, as I believe anything in life really is more is benefited by. And yes, I had just had another MRI recently, and yes, nothing is there.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
so
you.
fantastic, Michelle. I mean, I'm sure, I imagine the doctors looked at you as like a kind of a miracle case. Like,
And
wow, what happened?
yes, and let me just say, and I've now offered to go back into the hospital, and anyone who has my cancer, to speak to them about what they
Wow.
can do differently. Of course, fear is one of the main components most have,
Yes.
but how
Yes.
I can help people, again, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So
I'm
I'm
glad.
delighted. And I will say, we'll get to it later, I'm launching a program that will include all these healers and all the insights that I gained.
Fabulous. Now, I'm glad you mentioned the fear factor, because when people are diagnosed with cancer, and also this is also something important during the pandemic as well, people are facing either someone they know that has died through the pandemic, through COVID, or maybe themselves that they are facing COVID. When you came across the diagnosis of cancer, I imagine due to your spiritual work and due to all your, you know, healing practices that you did before, you were pretty well prepared to face death. So prior to and after being diagnosed with cancer, did your feelings toward death change at all, or were you kind of like prepared already and thought, I've been preparing my whole life for this, I'm ready? Or did it still kind of catch you off guard and still take you into a kind of a very deep transformation around the question of death?
I've, I mean, so just going to the simple physical.
Yeah.
I've always been exceedingly strong. I mean, I
Mm,
can do a plank for 8 minutes and
mm,
most people go, ooh, really? Or I've
yeah.
run 2 marathons as an example.
Oh,
Okay.
very
So,
good.
I mean, strength, physical strength has always been with me. So on one level, right, the little child in me was like, how could that be? I'm
Yes.
so healthy, right?
Yes.
So that type of silly question. However, to your point, again, I really didn't believe I was going to die from this. There was no doubt in my mind that I was going to overcome this and
Mm,
heal this. And I would have all the resources I need to do that.
beautiful.
However, as I went through this very painful, challenging journey, believe me, there were moments that despair
Mm,
hit because the pain took me to an edge, far beyond an edge that I had ever imagined that I could
mm,
handle. I would say that's when, it just was surrender.
mm,
If my soul, and I don't believe my soul dies, but if I were to go beyond my body to some other place, I was ready, if
mm.
nothing else, just to get out of all the pain.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I would say that, so it was functioning on, I was functioning on several approaches. One, to beat it and be strong and heal, and the other, yes, surrender if that weren't the case.